Welcome back to Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness. I'm your host, John Merkus, and if part one of our conversation with Alan Singer ignited a spark within you, prepare to fan those flames into a blazing fire of inspiration in part two. Today, Alan delves deeper into the essence of visionary leadership, the significance of balancing personal expectations with empathy, and the impact of mentorship on personal growth. We'll explore the practical applications of the philosophies that guide Alan's life and how we too can apply these principles in our own version of greatness. So buckle up as we continue to journey with Alan Singer, a man whose life story serves as a beacon for all those who aspire to lead, inspire, and make a meaningful impact in the world. Let's dive back in to our conversation for greatness. You are a great team builder because you have been connecting people for years, especially in teams, and building high-performance teams. Had a company called TriStar for many years, which was a leader here in Australia in IT recruitment. So I'm really interested in your insights as to, well, I guess part of building high-performance teams is the people, and you've been able to find people and connect with those people and then connect them with the right people. So I guess that's part of it, but I'd love to know your philosophy on high-performing teams and what it takes to be in one and what it takes to create one.
That's a big question, and it's one that I'm very, very passionate about. So I think the first thing that you look at, a high-performing team has to produce the outcomes required. Okay, so getting clear on the outcomes for the team is probably the first thing. So that comes back to vision. If people have a really clear picture of what the outcome is, that's the first thing, so that people aren't all going off in different directions with a different vision of what success looks like. And then everybody's got to want that. People in the team all need to be highly motivated to achieve that. I think there's a few things I could say there. If you have a high-performing team, everybody in the team needs to know what to do at any point in time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, yourself at any point in time, you got a choice. Do I do this or do I do that? A lot of success for outcomes comes from people doing the right thing at the right time. And that depends on knowing what to do, given the circumstances. Then, if you're getting that right, if you're sort of making sure you're knowing what to do at any point in time, you've either got to know how to do it or be able to engage somebody else who knows how to do it. Whoever's doing it needs to actually want to do it and be able to do it. So I think those three things, knowing what to do, how to do it, and wanting to do it, are absolutely essential in teams, as well as the vision.
And you're a master at finding those kind of people that have those traits or those attributes. So is that just a matter of that curiosity coming back again and you asking questions to people to find those kind of people that will be, that you can connect with others to be in high-performing teams?
Partially. It's more of a pull thing, though. So it's having people understand that they will be empowered to participate in something that sounds great and it sounds like they want to be part of. Mm. And if I use the example of Phoenix are the leading partner in the Southern Hemisphere for the OutSystems platform, for working on the OutSystems platform. And people want to be part of an exciting journey. Mm. People are pulled and attracted towards something that is not ordinary, but extraordinary. Mm. Greatness. People want to work with greatness. And part of that is seeing the opportunity to advance their career, advance their skills, being able to grow and learn. So I think as well as having that rapport and curiosity, it's about conveying a vision, a real vision, a grounded vision, something that's truthful, but conveying something that people see and want. And that then has the effect of, well, then what you can do is once you've got people enthused and on board, you can empower them to take that intention and turn it into a reality, into an outcome, and then sustain it. So I think high performance teams is really about attracting the right people, letting them know what's expected of them, giving them the tools and the resources to do their job and to be able to do their job effectively, having them know what to do, how to do it, and want to do it, and then giving them some idea through measurement of outcomes or measurement of progress, letting them know how they're going, and reward and acknowledge them appropriately. I think that's really, in terms of high-performing teams, they're the elements that I guess I found works.
It sounds like a great recipe for success. Reminded me when you were talking about the vision, the Simon Sinek stuff we talked about earlier, because the way you described that earlier, that would spark interest in others to want to buy in and be part of that. So that's a really good start, which you shared with us earlier. And then those other things you said really sounds like a platform to be able to bring your best self to that. And then if you can bring your best self to it, you're on your way, because you've supported, you know what to do, you know how it's going to be measured, you've got motivated people around you, you've got a shared vision, you've bought in, and away you go. What a great recipe for high-performing teams.
Look, it is, and I think it's come from many mentors. You talked about mentors before. Two of my favourite leadership mentors are Warren Bennis and Bert Nannis. And there was a book that I got a long time ago called Leaders, the Strategies for Taking Charge. And I've got this book, I read it quite often. There's a part of it that I've underlined, and I'd love to read it if I could.
I'd love you to.
So it's on organisational leadership, and it says the essential thing in organisational leadership is that the leader's style pulls rather than pushes people on. A pull style of influence works by attracting and energizing people to an exciting vision of the future. It motivates by identification rather than through rewards and punishments. And the leaders that they talk about in their book articulate and embody the ideals towards which an organization is striving. They enroll themselves, and by enroll, it's talking about signing up for. People sign up for a mission if you're a leader that uses the pull rather than the push. You want people to voluntarily sign up and enroll in bringing about the vision. And they enroll themselves in a vision that they believe in, that is attainable and worthy. And that is the secret to that next level. If you're a leader that can do that, if you can inspire people with a vision, get people to enroll, and have the people that are able to know what to do, how to do it, and want to do it, and you treat them in the right way by encouraging them, giving them the resources, working with them if they sort of deviate, and put the guardrails up to help them get back on track, and do it in a kind and respectful way. I should have mentioned that before. Respect for people is so important with rapport. It doesn't matter who it is and what situation you're in. I mean, people laugh at me because I get a spam call and I'll answer it. And, hi, look, I'm bringing up from the Victorian government. We've got a new hot water system. And, I'll sort of wait till they're finished. And then I say, look, I'm not in a position, I'm not wanting to do that, but thank you very much, And they keep talking and I'll say, look, sorry, I won't just hang up on them because, I was an encyclopedia salesman for a while. I know what it's like, and I understand they're doing their job. As annoying as it is for me to get the consistent calls, as everybody these days probably does, respect for your people, for your team. As a leader, you can never sort of lose it and disrespect people, because you can break a bond. You can, I call a gossamer thread of gold that you have with your people, and you must maintain that.
That's just amazing. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had to learn some of these things. So I'm wondering, what were some of the challenges and breakthroughs? You've mentioned a few of them, but is there a particular one or two that stand out to you that have got you to where you are today? Because you're very patient, understanding, empathetic, wonderful, easy, quick rapport builder, great question asker, all that kind of thing. I'm wondering what some of the challenges and breakthroughs that you've had personally to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, look, I think one of the hardest things was when you go from a startup and you have 3, 5 people working, and then you get to 20 people and you need to change gear, and the organization needs to change gear. You go from absolute startup where basically the founder is the one calling the shots. The founder's the one doing most of the things, and the other people who are coming on are glorified assistants. They're not paid to think or do anything at that stage. You're just sort of teaching them, giving them things to do. But at some point when you get to 15 or 20 people, maybe even 10 people, the founder has to change gear and find a whole new way of working. And it's about, number one, empowering people and giving them decision making. It's about the founder being able to handle people making mistakes. And that's one of the hardest things for founders, to accept that people will make mistakes. And they won't be mistakes of their own making. Often it will be that there's information they haven't been given, or there's a method that they haven't understood was necessary in this situation, or they don't even see the situation because everything's new and it's all being built and it's unfolding. So the organization needs the founder to change mindset. So instead of barking orders at people and expecting people just to do what they're told and nothing more, it's about working with people and having them understand that here's the vision, here's the guidelines, here's the best way to do it, here's the situation when it's good to check with someone else before you make a decision. These are the things that are non-negotiable. You know, in other words, letting people know what's expected of them. So for me, there was a day when the 2 coaches that were working with my organization sort of called me into my office and they said, look, you have to change the way you're working. You have to change the way you're thinking. And if you don't, leave the business for us to run and get out of the business and go and do something else.
Wow, that's giving it to you straight.
And that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I said, really? Am I, that far off the mark? And they said, you're so far off the mark in how you're great with the vision, you're great with clients, but, you're getting in the way of people. You are not empowering people. You're interfering with people. People don't feel empowered. You need to empower and get out of the detail and trust that people, the good people who know what to do, will do the right thing. And I did. I listened to them and I stepped back and the business just took off.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And because I would imagine getting that kind of feedback might have been a bit jarring in the initial instance.
It was.
But then you took it on, had to think about it, and use that feedback to empower you to make the changes that you need to change. So talk about a jolt, but I guess that was required. And I would imagine it would have taken a bit of courage for those people to say that to you as well.
Yeah, they were fairly courageous guys. One was a recruitment specialist and another one was sort of a personal performance coach, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Really working with all the people. So he was in a position to see exactly what was going on. And, it was in some ways the worst day in my career there, but in another way it was the best day.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a testament to your mindset. So your mindset is of personal growth, of how can I attitude. And so even when getting some of that feedback, and I guess that's important for us all to learn and understand, is that when you're getting feedback, you get to decide what you want to do with it and how you react to it. and that is a great story on taking that feedback that might have been challenging to hear, but made a massive difference in your life.
It did. And look, I have to say also that throughout the Tri-Stay years, I was beautifully supported by my two brothers, Stephen and Peter. They were really good because I think they could see it, but they were, very kind to me and, supporting me through that journey. It's interesting how you reflect back later on and see it from a different perspective. Very good to reflect back on it because you can still learn what's going to work better going forward.
Yeah, it does. It does. And you and I have done a similar personal development course, but you did it when it was its very infancy, when it was called EST training, I think, or
No, I
EST.
didn't. I knew a guy who did the S training, and that
Right.
was in 19. It was just starting. I think it must have been about 1984,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and Jim Francis, he shared the office next to me. I divided our office and he shared it. And I remember he came in one morning and said, I've just done this workshop. It was incredible. And I said, what was it about? Was it, about personal development? And he said, mate, it was more than that. He said, it was the box that everything comes in. And I didn't quite understand what he meant by that. As you know, Erhardt Seminar Training, or EST, became the landmark forum.
mm-hmm.
And I know that you've had a lot of involvement in training with them. And I've also done the landmark forum. I haven't gone as far as you have, but I certainly got a hell of a lot out of it. And I remember I was coaching a lady. She won't mind me sharing this story. She was in recruitment. She had a recruitment company with temps, and she was very successful, a lovely lady called Roz. I'd done 2 coaching sessions with her, and she was manic. Like, she was all over the place. And I found that she just needed to talk about everything that was going on. And, I could see there was no room to actually create space to sort of open up topics deeply and sort of get some reflection going. And I remember saying to her, look, I think I can save you some money. I could keep doing this with you and coaching you, but I think it might be better if you go off and do this thing called the Landmark Forum. And she did. She rang me up afterwards and said, thank you so much. I now understand, what it was like for you when we were coaching, and it changed so many things for her in her life. It helped her repair relationships. And is it still going? Is the Landmark Forum still going?
I know it definitely was. And since COVID, I'm not quite sure what's been happening. I'm sure that it is going around the world. I don't know if it's in the same way or format that it used to be. But if anyone's interested in doing a wonderful personal development course, you just Google the Landmark Forum or Landmark Education. You will see it there. I also got a lot out of that and all the subsequent courses that I did, because I just have as you know, thirst for personal development. So when I did the first course, I thought I would like to know and to go deeper into this. And I still use the principles that I learned through that training almost on a daily basis. And especially if I am in a situation and I realize that I'm heaping all the meaning onto this situation and it doesn't necessarily mean what I think it means. Getting back to that judgment, I guess sometimes we conflate what happened and what we made it mean, and we conflate the two and think they're the same. But what happened is just what happened, and I'm making it mean whatever I'm making it mean. And if that's not empowering, I'm the one that's putting all the meaning and the judgment onto that situation. So if that's not empowering me, I get the choice to create a more empowering meaning. It could be as simple as you say good morning to someone and they kind of grunt at you, or you think that they did, and you go, oh, that person's not very nice, or why would they do that? Well, that's not very empowering for me to think that. But a different meaning that I could put on that is, oh, that person is really busy right now, and who knows, maybe they didn't have a good night's sleep, or they're not having a good day today. So I don't have to make it all about me and what I think it means and how insulted I might be. It's putting a different meaning onto it. So trying not to conflate or put together what happened and what you make it mean. You separate those two things. That was life-changing for me. I can explain it on the podcast here, and I know you get it because you did the same course. But when you are in the course and it's all part of the whole cake, if you know what I mean, it really is definitely life-changing. So that example I just gave about the meaning that we give to things that happen, that's like one small part of the recipe. You got to have the whole recipe to eat all the cake.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it sort of speaks into something that I think we all do a lot, and that is think about what's happening to us and not thinking enough about where that comes from. And we take on too much ourselves. I think it's important, if somebody's saying something to us or if something's happening to us that we don't like, that we're able to say, okay, let's take a step back and have a look at the interaction from a third party perspective. There's, the source of what's happening, and then there's me and what's actually happening here. And to get really clear on what part is yours and what part of it is about the other person. And I do find myself saying a lot to people, look, you're in this situation, but not all of what's happening is about you. You are a player in somebody else's movie.
Mm-hmm.
They've cast you as a character in their film.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't mean you're that person. But at the same time, it's important to look at what's being said and always look for what is true, what could be true in what's being said, so that you can actually learn and be given the gift of feedback. But it's also good not to beat yourself up too much when some issue that you're in is about somebody else's preconceived ideas or their judgments.
And having that observer mentality, so you can observe what's happening to think about it in a different way or a different light. That's very empowering.
John, when we were talking about that in the third party, I thought of another mentor of mine, a gentleman by the name of Alan Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Parker is an Australian man he's a teacher in negotiation and communication. I've done it was a course at ACU. It was a couple of semesters on negotiation and communication. I would recommend him to anyone who wants to be a leader, or who wants to be in conflict resolution, or who wants to improve their communication. He's fantastic. We might be able to post that in the show notes, but Alan Parker would have to be one of the most learned and amazing mentors, teachers that I've ever had. He helps with critical thinking, which is something I'm passionate about. He helps people to look at what is a fact, what is a supposition, what is an assumption. And it's really important for decision making to know that what you're working with. You don't want to make decisions based on assumptions or misassumptions or the wrong ideas. So he talks about, how do you know if you're dealing with facts? If you're dealing with an assumption, that's okay. Just know it's an assumption. Do you have some bias that is, not in your awareness? Try and identify what your biases are. And he talks about having a complete, and so does Stephen Covey, talks about having a complete and correct paradigm. And it's only through having a complete and correct paradigm that people can actually make the best decisions. I think he's great.
Thanks for sharing that. And that's just a testament to all the knowledge that you go out there and seek and learn and benefit from and know enough about it to be able to share it. So that's important as well. Because I know personally I've read some books and I think they're great, but then you think about trying to share some of the pieces of gold that you got out of it, and that can be challenging. But you are doing that for us today very well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I think, going back to the question of greatness again, one other thing that springs to mind, something I think is great, is when people behave on matters of principle. So, what do I mean by that? When I see people standing up for others when it's the right thing to do, I think that's great. And when people say things that people need to hear in a way that they can hear it, I think that's great. And so that's being honest with caring. So that reminds me of another book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor, where she talks about it's okay to be honest with people, but the main thing is let them know that you're actually coming from a caring place and not a critical and damaging position. Let them know that you and we're not talking about the feedback sandwich where we tell them one good thing and then put a bad thing in the middle and then another good thing. That's not what it's about. But being honest with caring is letting people know that how they are in your life, what you feel about them, and why you're sharing what you're going to share with them.
Great. That sounds like a really good structure for feedback. So you're bringing the intention, and you can explain that before the feedback comes.
Yeah, and if people know you care, if they know that you truly care, they're more likely to accept it in the way that it was intended.
Nice. Now, your surname is Singer. You are a singer. You've been a band manager, and you love music.
Are we going to do a duet?
That would be good.
I don't think either of us would know any of each other's songs somehow, John.
Well, I know you're a Beatles fan, and, and I'm a Beatles fan as well. So I ask my guests, is there a particular song or piece of music that you love to listen to that inspires you and motivates you? Because I put it on my Spotify Merkus motivation playlist for our listeners to listen to if they ever want to be uplifted and inspired. So what would that song or piece of music be for you?
I can remember, when I first heard She Loves You in 1964. So I love that. I love the harmonies. I love I Want to Hold Your Hand. People are probably rolling their eyes at me right now with...
Well, I'm going to put one of those on the playlist.
Okay.
So there'll be a Beatles song from that era, probably one of those two on there. No worries there, babe. No worries.
I think some of the songs from Rubber Soul are really good, like Norwegian Wood. There's so many good songs. And the more you listen to them, the more you understand how they put them together. It gives you a greater appreciation. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to read something to you, and I know you're a humble man, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. As I was doing some research for this interview, I came across a few things, of course, doing research, and this was one of them. And so I'm going to read it back to you. Alan Singer is the ultimate professional person who delivers. Alan is a man of many strengths, but his priority traits are strategic thinking, intelligence, adaptability, empathy, and influence. Alan is deeply committed to organisational success and works diligently to focus the business in a positive and financially sound manner. He cares about people on a personal and professional level. Alan consistently brings the right person to the perfectly aligned role. He is erudite, articulate, and forthright. He continually inspires people to not only show up, but to deliver their best every single day. He is an authentic leader.
Wow, did my mum write that?
No. That was written about you. That's a recommendation from your LinkedIn profile. Wow. One of many that are on there. And I wanted to read that to you to, I don't know, put a bit of a mirror in front of your face in a way, because this is how many people in your life think about you and view you. And so I wanted to say thank you for being you and for how you show up in the world, because it really makes a difference to people and organizations. And I know what you've shared on the interview today and on the podcast will make a difference to others. And there's so much gold in there. So I just wanted to say thank you for being on the show. Thank you for showing up how you show up. And when you get compliments like that, there's no need to be humble, mate. Just embrace it.
I'm severely embarrassed.
That's
Uh,
a difficult, Alan.
it's hard, yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. You've been very, very generous. Yeah.
No worries, Al. I also want to ask, let's say I came to you and said, Alan, can we have a coffee? And we had a coffee, and I said, Alan, I'm not feeling my best at the moment, and I'm struggling a little bit. What would you say to me to try and help me?
Well, the first thing I'd do is I'd say, look, you know, would you like to have a bit of a chat about it where we kind of look into what's going on for you? Are you comfortable to share a little bit more about what's going on?
Mm,
So coming from, what I learned from David Roth with the scarf model, asking that permission
yeah,
and because sometimes what I've learned is that people don't necessarily want to go into it. They just need to say how they're feeling.
yeah,
So if somebody says, no, I don't want to talk about it, I'd just say, fair enough. Well, look, if there's anything I can do to support you, I can
mm,
get you to stand up and we can do some deep breathing, or I can tell you a really bad joke, or we can spend some time where you can share a little bit more about what's going on. So, we can talk a little bit more about it.
nice, and that can help all of us. So, in terms of the way that you would handle that, which is asking for permission, so you're really gauging whether someone wants to talk more about it or whether they just need,
Just need to be heard, just
yeah,
need to be able to say, I am feeling crap and I don't know how I'm going to get through it. I'm just at the end of my tether, and, they either want to talk more or they don't. And,
mm,
and the other thing is then to keep checking in on them, make contact, how you're going, and just be there. Let people know you're there.
yeah. Yeah, that's lovely, Alan. There is something I wanted to ask you. I nearly
Yeah.
finished with the last question. You told me the story about the guy in the BMW,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember the story, but I'm struggling with the moral of the story. But I knew that if I'd said that to you, that you would know exactly what I'm talking about.
So one of the topics I'm really, really, really interested in and I'm working on myself is insight, the topic of insight, how to have more insight into what's going on. So what is insight? It's about knowing stuff. It's a little bit like Sherlock Holmes. If you look at Sherlock Holmes, he has incredible insight because he looks at apparently disparate facts and brings them all together and somehow joins the dots and comes to a conclusion. So the story I told you came from a writer who wrote a book by the name of Insight, funnily enough. And she told the story of two New York policemen that were sitting in traffic at the traffic lights. They're sitting there and the cop that's driving sort of, zoning out, and the cop next to him was sort of looking around and observing and obviously taking in everything. And the cop in the passenger seat says, listen, when the lights change, we need to pull that car over because it's stolen. And the cop driving goes, huh? What are you talking about? And he said, just do it. So lights change. And it was a beautiful new BMW that the cop in the driver's seat in the passenger seat was talking about. Lights change, cars take off, lights go on, sirens, woo, 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 and pull the car over, get in front of it. They ask the driver to get out, and they do a check on the rego. They've got the driver bailed up and all the rest of it. And sure enough, it was a stolen car. The driver of the cop car is incredulous, and he said, how did you know that was a stolen car? You didn't have a computer you were checking. How did you know? And the other cop says, well, I looked at the car. It's a brand new BMW. It's like 3 days old. It's absolutely brand new, and it's got beautiful white leather inside. What I noticed was that the driver was actually smoking in the car, and he wasn't even ashing out the window. He was smoking, and because they're on the other side of the road, he was smoking, and then he would just ash the cigarette onto the seat opposite. And he said, on the balance of probabilities, A person who would buy a car like that with white leather would never ash their cigarette onto the passenger side seat. So I figured there's a really good chance it was stolen. And sure enough, it was. And so, you can get insight and draw conclusions. Sometimes the conclusions aren't correct. So you have to be careful and, make sure you're not going off with the wrong ideas. But in that instance, he was right.
I remember that story what you're telling me in there. So the power of insight and observation, got it. And I know what you mean about Sherlock Holmes, because it's like, oh, I know this because of these 5 reasons that you wouldn't have even necessarily observed, but he did.
Puts it all together. So yeah, insight is something that is really, really interesting. Being able to almost know intuitively what's going on in other places, even though you're not there and seeing it. But if you know enough about different moving parts, you can make some guesses.
And is there anything that I haven't asked you today that you wish that I had?
Oh, look, we've covered a lot of stuff, and I've really been grateful to have the opportunity. We talked about Zig Ziglar, Simon Sinek. I did want to talk to you about how leaders transmit and embed culture. I don't think we've got enough time to do that now.
Okay. That's a good teaser for next time.
Yeah, maybe. Why don't we? No, look, I think you've really been fantastic and given me an opportunity to share a lot. So thank you. I think the only other thing I wanted to say is that at the moment, I'm looking at, there's a need, I think, in the world to have critical thinking with the proliferation of social media, with the proliferation of all the news channels and, the different channels that people are exposed to about information. It's important that people have processes by which they can discern if something is true or not. And particularly with AI coming along with some of the things that can be done now with AI, with deep fakes. I think a theme for personal development in the future will be how to help people understand what's real and what's speculation or what's pure fiction or what is fabrication. I think that is an area that will grow in terms of personal development. I mean, we've always had conspiracy theories, but it just seems like things are going to a new level with the number of channels and social media and the way things can be spread. People need to be able to understand what is fact and what is not fact.
Yeah, and have that real connection with real human beings. I hear what you're saying, Alan. I wanted to thank you for being on the show, sharing all the greatness with us, all the wonderful pieces of gold. The show notes will be a plethora of references and things that you've made today. Thanks for everything you're doing in the world. See you on the show next time.
Thanks, John, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. Really enjoyed it, and you're doing an amazing job. Keep being great, mate.
Thanks, mate. We'll be great together.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness with John Merkus. Remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and you do matter. Embrace the journey of personal growth and motivation. Let's go out there and do something great. Follow or subscribe for more insights and inspiration every Tuesday. Until next time, stay awesome.